We seek the authentic over the authoritarian. We see behind the curtain the theatrics, the theoi tricks, the tricks of the gods, becoming aware of the artifice used by those who would rule us. As our eyes become opened, we cultivate the knowing, that inner gateway to all that is, the infinite mindscape where the patterns that create manifest reality exists. The gatekeepers held sway for so long, defining reality for those who listen. But now the rush of the crowd comes as each knows the way is open to all who thirst for knowledge and wisdom. The gatekeeper who stands in the way will be trampled, for nothing can stop those whose time has come. The portals of knowing are opening. Beware to the gatekeepers who will not give way. This is the Portals of Knowing podcast, brought to you by portalsofknowing.com. We are Karen Christine Patrick and Bret Colin Sheppard, independent researchers in the area of the experiencer movement, exopolitics, UFOs, anomalies, and alternative history. Welcome. Bret made a statement on Facebook the other day I thought was very excellent. The one who imagines their world is the master of it. And I wanted to talk about that. The one who imagines their world is the master of it. And we'll call the show Mastering Your Imagination. And Bret, why don't you explain what was kind of on your mind when you wrote that?
Well, one of the things that I was doing while I was writing that, I had read, half of Whitley Strieber's new book, Supernatural, and it was very thought-provoking and inspiring, and it is almost like my parallel life in a way, as far as the esoteric stuff. And, I when I was thinking about that, I was looking back at my own life, and I was actually starting to research some of that for my autobiography. And I thought about what is perceived when we look at our past, because I have a photographic memory and I have a very clear picture, and I have a very clear picture of these things that are very dramatic or traumatic in my life. And when I look back at it, not only is the picture absolutely accurate, but there are more details that come forward. And when I made that statement, I felt as though it was a sort of a philosophical statement that means when you can imagine something in your world as your reality, you are not only responsible for it, but are the master of it. And, these things that we imagine or is within the realm of our perception become our reality if it fits with nature. So when we look inside of ourselves and we get very thought inspired, we look at the deeper meaning and the subtle things about our world that we've created around us. And sorry. Now, one of the main things that I think is important about that statement is that we do create our reality in a manner that is within the realm of our perception. And when we, if we watch the propaganda news all day or something like that, we're really not using our imagination. We are living in someone else's mastered world. And that is what inspired me to make that statement, for people to reclaim their imagination and their world.
Yeah, I'd say a theme of what we talk about often is perception, about what's coming to us from the outside, from the consensus reality, or since it's mostly given to us by media now, I'd say I call it the consensus reality show, right? And what is going on the inside, and both you and I, for different life reasons, have cultivated more of our interior thought life because we were put in situations where we couldn't really engage extensively with the outside world. And so that turned out to be good, because now we have looked at how we think ourselves, how we imagine, how we perceive, and the material that we have encountered, we, kind of run it through that bullshit meter, really, that interior bullshit meter. I notice more than I used to right away when somebody is trying to tell me what my reality is. So I'm trying to develop these as a little sort of toolbox to help myself and other people. One of those is the royal we. So when consensus reality science says, dismisses evidence and testimony about something it is trying to put under the rug, or they'll say, well, we can't say that yet. So they, take the position. I always think of the Queen of Beings and we are not abused. I think of that. It's like they're taking the position that they're speaking for all of us. And I'm saying, if me is not in your we, it ain't we anymore. And so I was raised in a cult. They wanted to dominate every thought. And in my personality programming and in taking over my own life and my own mindset, I've learned that I have to be the measure of my own perception, or the master of my own perception and imagination. I can't give that job over to somebody else, because they may not come to the same conclusions that would be good for me. And so this is something we talk about a lot, in reference to some very strange and odd experiences that were both external and internal.
Yeah, well, when they use the royal we, they're talking about the old Peruvian über alles, which is a German word that means over all, and so above all. And the thing is that some of these new people that are coming in try to use the über alles techniques, when they do their videos on YouTube or other platforms. We just got back from Contact in the Desert, and we saw a lot of über allesing.
Making a verb.
Yeah, and you've got these people that they are the only spokesperson for a secret space program. They are the only spokesperson for whatever other little subtle detail there is about the whole thing. Something small like the manipulation of all of our space images.
Well, yeah, I call them the spokesmodels, because they're picked, it seems, to take a bunch of other people's stories and funnel them through this one approved channel, right?
Right. And
right off the bat, I'm going, well, wait a minute, I want to hear from the other people they're quoting, or other people who are talking about this. It's, to me, there's a wonderful old proverb, there's wisdom in many counselors.
Well, you've got the Department of Defense people, that are retired walking around the Contact in the Desert. You've got CIA people. You've got people that were actually in the secret space program selling T-shirts.
Oh, I know.
You have, they were selling T-shirts. They were working security. They were doing other things when they should have been the ones speaking on the podium. And instead, we've got these non-experiencer researchers, which is fine, at least the word's getting out and all of that. But guess what? You're missing a lot of subtle details. You're missing everything. You're missing alles.
The alles of the uber alles. That's good. Yeah, you're missing details. For instance, you see this sort of same core group of people going from conference to... I mean, we're going to talk about conferences because we just went to a big one. So it's conference, saying the same thing when really this could be a story that's unfolding and has new information. And let's hear what this person has to say and correlate with what this... eyewitness testimony right off the bat is shoved under the rug. It's I studied these people, and I'm trying to decide if they're credible or not enough to think that they have the right to declare such things.
Right. Yeah. So all you have to do is have a viral video on YouTube or something like that. And according to the guys we sat with, almost naked in a hot tub, that were running the whole Contact in the Desert.
That was funny.
They were the business executives of Contact in the Desert.
Yeah, I was modest.
And yes, they could give, or they could care less about the actual subject matter. They only care about what's popular and what draws people into their hotel. Okay, so that is that aspect of it when you look at it.
Well, they made a market out of it.
Yeah. So if you're looking at what should be said or what should be disclosed or anything like that, there's a gazillion numbers of things that could be disclosed. So if someone is uber alicing and saying, we're ready for disclosure, what the hell does that mean? There are tiny little aspects of all of this that affect everyone. And, if you're talking about a disclosure of sorts, it would have to happen to each individual. So, we are the world and Pepsi and holding hands and all of that. That is what it would take for there to be a true disclosure, because there are so many subtle details that that come along with that. The things that the people that would disclose anything don't even understand.
Well, yeah. To me, so disclosure, big V disclosure, I already have a problem with, because implied in the way it's been defined is that whoever is the disclosure president, stands up and declares to the world. It has to be U.S. president. It can be somebody else from another country. It has to be U.S. president. Says the reality of UFOs and aliens is real, and we've been having this and that involvement, and blah blah blah. Legitimizing it.
Well, yeah, all people like Richard Dolan, who is a very prominent and very good researcher. He's the who, what, when, where, why, how guy, like Linda Moulton Howe. They're very good researchers, but they don't talk about their own experiences, and damn it, I know they do have their own experiences with this. And that would really help with disclosure if they would come out. But, they are under pressure because of this credibility issue that's played with them, especially if they're in the mainstream media of sorts or something like that. The thing is that I was talking with a guy from the CIA and the Department of Defense, and they were literally telling me, talking about continuity, that is a very serious thing, that there are millions of people working in those departments. They have families to feed. They have other issues going on. Mm-hmm. So what you're talking about is a socioeconomic aspect of this disclosure, which is a very harsh reality. It is something that kind of puts a big boot in disclosure of any kind. And they said that they are paid to keep the secrets. Now, what's wonderful about that is they told me that they're secrets.
They told you they're keeping them.
And they told me they're keeping the secrets.
And they probably told you you're on the right track.
They told me I was on the right track, and they said most of the speakers here, it is a damn shame because people paid really good money to come here and hear something be disclosed.
Yeah.
And they're just rattling off the same old thing they did last year and the year before and the year before. Are UFOs real? What if there are aliens? What do they want with us? What is their agenda? And all of this stuff or whatever. Instead of looking at the meaning of all of this, we're looking over here and we're looking at the nuts and bolts of it, or something that is superficial in our reality.
And the same 10 cases.
Yeah, and the same old thing or whatever, done with a twist of lemon.
Well, yeah, right off the bat, you're kind of talking about a frustration that I have because you are an experiencer. I am an experiencer, and we've recognized that sort of like the ufology, exopolitics genre is kind of got a camps, and one big camp is the non-experiencer, and I'm not, there's good researchers, but I'm saying the non-experiencer researcher, to be really frank, is kind of like having a nun tell you about sex.
Yeah, they're confined to a box,
or a blind person tell you about the rainbow. I mean, if they're not going to admit that they have an experience, and I'll give them some credit if they've had an experience with the material. I'll be generous in that respect of what's an experience there, but there's a frustration from not a couple of experiencers. It's not just Travis Walton and Whitley Strieber and a couple of other people. There are thousands and thousands
who were
of
comparatively ignored.
I've done radio off and on for 5 years. I think I've interviewed a couple thousand. I'm not sure. Right. A lot. A couple hundred for sure. And then when we get there, like, I didn't, like, I'm at the thing, we worked a table, that was our job. And on my off hours, I really didn't go listen to the main speakers. I actually got bombarded with and purposely chose to talk to the people who weren't in the limelight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone like Travis Walton, he's such a good guy. I actually jammed out and played guitar with him and stuff like that. We were singing "Let It Cry," while Richard Dolan was giving a speech, or somebody was.
We got in trouble.
And they came out and they told us to kind of be quiet.
Because you're awesome and you're really loud and you don't need a microphone.
And this, this really enormous, model-esque hippie came out, with the dreadlocks and everything. He goes, "Hey, dude, come on, just bring it down a notch, or whatever." And I think he was one of, what's that guy's name? Gilliland, James Gilliland.
Oh, one of his.
Yeah, one of his guys. Yeah. Okay. But
West Coasty guy.
Yeah, they it was just funny. We were. I was singing "Let It Cry" really loud all the way down the hall, and I'm sure I was annoying the spokespeople.
Well, there's radio interviews happening.
All that stuff.
You got in trouble. But and you got Whitley Strieber. Oh my God. What
that was amazing. Yeah.
Human. I mean, he's got light still left in his eyes. I mean, he's still processing.
That was amazing. Yeah, because he's really on the same wavelength that I'm talking about. I wish I could just sit down and tell him my story and compare notes, because we're talking about the same type of either interdimensional or some kind of beings from somewhere else that are communicating with us. And they are very silly and strange, and they do really strange things, as far as that goes. But they're somewhat benevolent, They're trying to teach us something or show us something. And what really intrigued me about some of what he was talking about is that they wore masks, these little weird blue beings and all of that. And they were.
That's your experience.
Some of these, dreamscapes were kind of like that,
right.
And I'm really glad that he came out with some of that, some of the stranger stuff, as far as like ufology or what that means, or
didn't care about whether it sounded credible.
He didn't care what it sounded like. That is what he experienced, and that's how I feel about it too.
So you're listening to the Portals of Knowing podcast with Karen, Christine, Patrick, and my really, really handsome life and research partner, Bret, Colin, Sheppard. Stay tuned for the second half. Hello, my name is Karen Christine Patrick. I'd like you to check out my website, kcpatrick.com, and the reason why I'm saying that is I have 2 projects on there you might find very interesting. One is my ebook, Weird Shouldn't Starve, which is making a case for supporting free speech on fringe topics through a basic income. And the other is an ebook called The Anunnaki and the Moon, which is about, it's a combination of my interest in early NASA missions as well as my studies in the Anunnaki topic. So I hope you check those out. My work's unusual, but I think that you will really enjoy it. kcpatrick.com. And thanks for listening. Bret Colin Sheppard talks about his book, Digital Moon, that can be found on his website, bretcolin.com.
Going into the depths of the mystery of NASA images and the bizarre story of Bret Colin Sheppard, which is me, I wrote a book called Digital Moon about my experiences with my research into the paradigm and perception of our NASA images. And the book goes over all kinds of different subjects regarding areas surrounding the images. It goes into depth about my story when I was 15 years old. And a lady from Stanford Research came and showed me a bunch of images. I found them embedded in lunar images many years later. So there were some very strange things and a mystery in my life that I had to find out.
You can find Bret's book, Digital Moon, on bretcolin.com. bretcolin.com. Well, I found myself talking to a lot of women. I think there isn't a heck of a lot of women that were speakers in this conference. We had Linda Moulton-Howe, and she's awesome. We've met her. She's really awesome. Janet Lesson, Yvonne Smith. But I mean, it's still kind of, this whole thing is a dude army. That's what I call it. The dude army. Bret's going to plug some more juice into our computer before it goes out. We're kind of rough and ready and improvising our technology today. That's one of the things. But I was talking to a lot of women experiencers, a lot of people that were in the secret space programs, hidden programs, people who were in the MK Ultra, Monarch Project talent, a lot of younger women. It's been kind of interesting because that we were told these particularly Project Monarch and MK Ultra were discontinued. In fact, we heard yesterday, who was that guy? Who's Colonel Aquino talking about how these programs were ended and they were badly managed and they got bad data out of them. And I'm like, I am meeting people from many ages still in something like, maybe they put a different name on it, but it's the same mind control programs, getting experiencers on lockdown, getting sensitives and psychics under control. And one of the younger ones who's come out and not afraid to say it's your daughter. She's 21 and she's talking about some of the same testing and things that went on when I was in school in 1968 in the Central California School District there, where they had Project Talent running, which they said was to find gifted and talented children and help them go to college. But they were actually also looking for psychics for Cold War experiments. Same experiments. Your daughter's going through the same thing. And I've talked to her at length about it. So it's still going on. I had a group of gals more like closer to 30 years of age also telling me the same thing. So to me, the experiencer movement, such as it is, it's where it's at. And there's been such a marked attacks on prominent experiencers, depending on who they are, from this non-experiencer researcher group of people, that I just don't. And a lot of interest in that. It's kind of like I keep hearing, okay, yeah, we've heard those guys before. Now let's talk to each other. So it's like a family reunion.
Well, it's just a dead subject. If they're looking for proof and they're laying the proof on the table or whatever, that means absolutely nothing without the profound philosophical story that goes with it.
The human experience.
The human experience.
Yeah.
The actual experience. If you go to a zoo or anything like that, it is an experience. Go to the zoo and come back and tell someone about the gorillas and the lions and everything. It isn't the same.
As going.
It's not the same as going and prove it. So, they're looking for proof, but they're not really accepting any.
That's true.
So, it's when someone tells their story, why not listen to it and actually give them the benefit of the doubt before accusing them of being false or having a false memory or any stupid thing. That is what our country is supposed to do. We are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent.
And have free speech.
And that's Richard Dolan's thing or whatever. He thinks you're guilty until proven innocent.
Well, we say that because he went after a friend of ours, Andrew Bishago.
Right.
Went after Corey Good. I don't know. I haven't followed that case. But Andrew, we know. He was in our house Christmas Day.
Right, yeah.
He was sitting right here where I'm sitting.
Yeah, I realize how unbelievable these things are, but we have to take into account human perception. And the beginning statement, when we said, if the world you imagine is your world, you are the master of it. And the thing about that, it is your experience. It is your interpretation. It is your perception of that. And none of it's false, not a bit of it. But it's your actual perception of it that people question when they're looking for proof. Now, the thing is about that is not only are they going to find that their twisted perception of whatever their past was, when they dig into that, they're not only going to find that it was true, but it's actually a lot more complex than what the individual could possibly remember in detail.
That's what you're going through right now.
And that's some of what I'm going through right now. I'm finding that there's a lot more to the picture in my mind of any, event or any experience that I may have experienced as a child or whatever. And especially when I'm remembering way, way back or whatever. So I do not rely on just my perception. And this is what Richard Dolan needs to understand, and people like that. We cannot rely on just our perception. He needs to listen to lots of people that were there.
Right.
Not just the one guy, okay?
Right.
With that perception. The smoking gun guy who has credibility. Who gave him credibility?
Yeah, who gives the credit?
Who gives the credit?
That's who's in
here's
charge.
Another control, right?
Right, that's who's in charge.
So what is the credibility? You have to have a PhD. You have to have a degree. You have to be the sergeant major of the army. You have to be whatever. That is not what credibility is. Credibility is authenticity. It is actually experiencing something and being passionate about what you experienced. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're passionate about that, it isn't very hard to prove things, at least that it happened. So when you look back at something and you ask other people about that time period and what happened, it's very validating. Not only do you find out that it happened, but it's a lot more complex.
Yeah, I have an experience there at that big meeting. So like I had an experience, a certain set of experiences when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And I was under recruitment. I was about 7 years old. Under recruitment, they're giving me all these tests. They're putting me in a special class. They're pulling me out of class and testing me. I mean, all this stuff's going on. And then I told my parents about it, and a lot happened. I keep talking about that complexity, but ultimately, for that and different reasons, we actually moved out of the state, and we ended up in Oregon, and that was that. Well, I'm poking around in that whole era for myself again, and
I have a chance to ask my mother what happened quite extensively. We have a good relationship. She was sick for about 7 months, just need a lot of help. So, I'm taking care of her. I asked her and quizzed her, and we chatted and talked, and I pieced together a lot of things. And then when I was at this event, I met someone who went through almost the identical same thing. And so we talked for 3 hours, and it was like, if I didn't do anything but that, it was worth the trip, because we were able to, connect the dots with each other about how our cult, we had a cult that was tied to the military industrial complex, and it was like a feeder organization to programs. So they already had you on lockdown with extreme rigid belief system, fundamentalist belief system, and then they could easily manipulate that into having you participate in some kind of secret organization. And in fact, my father was in recruitment to go to the FBI. He didn't do that, but I'm just saying, like you said, it becomes this the passion, like you're saying, the interest, like I got to know this, right, is making me go down all the different parts of this spider web and get a more complete picture. And that's
another thing that you'll notice is that people that were not there and know nothing about it are trying to say that it's too unbelievable to believe.
I have an opinion.
So they have some kind of and their opinions are facts. They actually come right out and say, for instance, my father said that I think that he thinks that he was molested as a child, or he thinks this or that, or whatever. And what a smack in the face that is. It's like, first of all, you weren't there. You weren't a father. You were never there.
Oh, he's saying that you just think that.
Right. And he should know better than that, because he knew my mom.
Well. And,
he always called her, a bitch or whatever, a Yankee bitch, and that I was a Yankee son of a bitch, and all this. And so it was very Texan, So I couldn't do anything right.
So he was dismissive of your experience.
Yeah, he was dismissive of it. And the last thing he told me, and keep in mind that I'm supposed to believe him when he tells me something.
Sure.
So the last thing he told me is that he had slept with my Aunt Judy, and that, my cousin may not be my cousin, but also a brother. So, that's one example of something that I'm supposed to believe coming out of his mouth.
Right.
When he doesn't believe me or my experience. And, it's not that I need to be believed, but it would be nice, especially, from a parent or something.
I really appreciate my mother.
It would be nice to have some kind of approval or something. I never had that. I always got, I don't recall you're bringing doom and gloom, into the room.
You're crazy.
You're crazy. I don't want to hear it. It's too dark, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Pushing it away.
Yeah, but I have always tried to express my experiences.
Me too.
Why would you want to keep that inside?
Well,
what are you doing that for? The world?
Yeah. Well, the keeping it inside thing is the culture. The culture,
right?
Is
this prudish, weird, keep it in the closet type culture,
which is being pushed back because people are not wanting to stay in boxes anymore.
Right. How are you going to have disclosure when nobody even wants to talk about the abuse or the child trafficking or the 9/11 or anything else? Everything else that's in the closet.
Yeah, my brother, we talked about, I try, I know,
right,
from much research and myself too, and talking to people who've done the studies, that there is some connection between UFOs and Bigfoot. That's a thing. There's people who, they're at a UFO hotspot. And
right, but that's fake news, compared to the PP tape stuff.
Well, what I'm saying is that my brother says there's no connection. And that's the end of the conversation for him.
There's a connection in all of nature. So there is a possibility of anything being connected.
What he's telling me is that he's got this compartmentalized. Or people do that. They have compartmentalized thinking.
I believe that is entirely socioeconomic. I think he's kissing the mainstream ass to have a paycheck.
I never even asked you about that. I'm just saying it was interesting to me that he compartmentalized it that way without research. Well, because if you looked into it, you'd see the connection.
That's where they have people kind of by the balls, you know. Right. Whether you're bagging groceries at Walmart, mm-hmm. which now I guess they have the one person doing it, and they don't even want that person to do it.
No,
they want everybody to do it.
We're doing it.
So anyway, everyone's job is in danger and on the line if they say anything weird. If they even mention, let's go on strike or something, or their job is in jeopardy if they go against the system at all.
True.
So what kind of Orwellian bullshit is that?
Control.
Now, wake up and fuck the control, okay? Just wake the hell up. Bag the damn groceries, and if they won't let you do it, take the shitty apron off and walk.
Hey, Bret.
Yeah,
one sentence, you mean that I got to make this an adult program, so I just thank you.
Oh, okay.
No, but you're saying it like it is. I appreciate it.
Right.
What did I have to hit that adult content?
What did I say? Shit? You can say that on TV.
You can say that, and I just have to mark it's adult content.
Right. Every kid I've ever seen in my life says shit, okay?
Well,
and other things.
Well, we're being real, and we're having our coffee, and we're being ourselves, and,
right.
This isn't broadcast.
This isn't for kids. Come on. Look at what we're talking about.
Yeah, true.
This is not, it's for big kids. Because from what I've seen, as far as how most adults act. When they're
big kids.
Yeah, like they're big kids, and it's really ridiculous to watch. Yeah. And especially the more serious they are, the more childlike they are. The more prima donna they are. It's like they've got perfect nails. They've had their manicures, which is for a man.
That's okay.
You're
a gardener. You don't care,
right? I don't care. That would be nice. I'd like to.
A man, a cure.
I'd like to suit up and be the guy
look nice.
or whatever. But that's not what's important. But if you look at
some people
look at someone like that or whatever, you want to look good on TV, I suppose. So they wear their suits and that's what it's all about for them. What about the what about the information?
Give me the straight stuff. Well, there's a more. Here's what I did. I did an experiment.
Right.
I was working with Ken Johnston. We've been working with him for a couple of years, and I was his editor. And part of why I had no first part of my year. It was just editing. Was I re-edited his first book, so second edition of the first book, and then edited the first edition of the second book. And the first book is his story, straight up, as credible as he wants it to be, with that weird twist of the weird stuff he saw at NASA. And then the second book, he had a regression, and it was a regression of a NASA whistleblower, KenJohnstonMedia.net. There you go. But that book sold in an hour.
Yeah, that book sold,
with all the copies that we took, sold in an hour. We were supposed to have for 4 days, sold in an hour.
Right.
Because there is...
People are interested in someone's experience more than the stupid proof.
Well, and here was the thing. This has been
so-called proof.
This has been my theory for these events for a while, is that people aren't coming to this event like it's Comic-Con, like it's cool and fun and weird and let's buy that book.
It is weird and fun.
Well, it is. And I'm not sure some of the people there were cosplay people or they just really dressed that way. It was California. But that's cool. That's cool.
I think they might pay some people to dress up weird and walk around.
No, I knew some of the people that were doing it and they were cool. That's just how they roll, and that's cool.
Oh,
but I'm just saying, but to me...
That's at Roswell. They make...
Yeah,
they pay people to dress up.
Oh, it's cool. They have a whole lot of things. That's fun. We did that last year. The guy on the stilts. Yeah,
big, tall stilt. Men in black suits.
I've been telling people lately, put Roswell UFO Festival on your bucket list because
that's a lot of fun. Even though they make it all silly and everything, there's a lot of serious history there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it though is, I think that to me, I don't think there's just 10 cases of contact. I think there's thousands, there might be millions, And everyone's having something out of the normal, paranormal, right? Of what the little box we call normal. And that's why they're coming. They're wanting some validation. They want some answers to an experience. So when you don't have that in the forefront of your mind of who your audience is, why did they pay all that money to be there, then they're missing it.
The military is not going to disclose anything, everybody. Okay? There isn't something in their Boy Scout handbook that says, in the event of disclosure. Which is kind of nasty, but the thing is about,
please break this glass.
Disclosure, disclosure, or whatever, is that it doesn't exist. But the thing is that, the extraterrestrials or interdimensionals
exists in California where they're having Disclosure Fest. A lot of money.
UFOs, winking at you or whatever, or this or that you're going to have a personal experience. Why in the world would there be a mass disclosure without any experiences? And why would you believe them? Why would you believe a word that came out of their lying for years mouth?
Is there more to Mars than we have been told? Is there a shared hidden history of inhabited realms in our solar system? Are there secret portals through interdimensional space connecting Earth to the red planet, Mars? You are cordially invited to the Mars Anomaly Research Society Conference, the 7th Annual, September 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2018 in Silver City, New Mexico, at the historic Murray Hotel. Is it possible that our nearest planetary neighbor not only has life but is populated by intelligent beings? To find out about this fascinating event, go to MarsAnomalyConference.com. Eyewitnesses, experiencers, researchers, and whistleblowers will come to southwestern New Mexico and share testimony about the possibilities. Come and investigate for yourself. Thank you for listening to the Portals of Knowing podcast. Please check out the website portalsofknowing.com for books and media from unique perspectives. Also on portalsofknowing.com, uniquely curated resources have been chosen by the team of Sheppard and Patrick. Cultivate the inner knowing for yourself using the great resources on our website. Thank you to the artist Jazzar for the song Great Dark Spot from the album Galaxy that can be found on the freemusicarchive.org. This is a production of portalsofknowing.com.